Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. We're going to try a different format today. I've been doing a lot of traveling over the last couple weeks, and I've been doing my best. When I first started writing my books, it started as local legends and lore from where I grew up, which was Port Angeles, and then where I live now, which is in the Kitsap area. And then it started branching out, legends around Washington State. I'm still mainly doing legends on the west side of the mountains, but the dream is to travel around. I'd start with the west coast and collect local legends and lore and check stuff out, and then branch out and go Oregon, California, Idaho, Montana. And I mean, really, I'd like to go all over the United States and then maybe even the continent and then, potentially the world. I'm really interested in this stuff. So I'm going to do a voiceover footage for this recent trip I took to Yosemite. And this is just kind of footage. It was a tourist trip. I didn't really get off the beaten path. So these are all places that you can visit and check out with your families. It was just kind of a fun trip. But while I was there, I did hear some local legends. So the first legend I heard was from an old timer. I was in the gift shop there in Yosemite. It's like a resort, and you can get cabins, and there's camping and stuff. And it's the main resort there in the Yosemite Valley. And I was wearing my explorer's hat I like to wear when I go on adventures. It keeps the sun out of my eye. It's like a Stetson cowboy type hat, and I have a pin on it that of a Sasquatch that a coworker gave me, and it's a cool little pin. It's got the outline of a Sasquatch with the aurora on the inside, so it's a really cool pin. And I was wearing that hat with the pin, and the old timer, he was stocking shelves or taking inventory or something, and he noticed my pin, and he started talking to me about Sasquatch. And the one thing I can say is that, true believers can tell each other out. So he knew I was interested in Sasquatch, and he shared a story with me, which I found really interesting. He said before he worked in Yosemite, he worked for the big log company that owns the rights to log in the Sierra Nevadas around Yosemite. And he said during his time there, he didn't really go into the specifics of his job. He wasn't built like a lumberjack, so I could only assume it was surveying or something. And he said that his time there, the log companies would drag the log roads on a regular basis to get rid of any footprints. If there was like an area where workers were reporting Bigfoot footprints or Bigfoot evidence, they'd come through and just drag chains all on those log roads to get rid of all the footprints evidence. And he farther said that if you reported Bigfoot sightings or Bigfoot footprints, you get reprimanded and then potentially fired. And he was quite convinced that both the logging companies and the national park knew of Bigfoot, and there was a concerted effort to keep people out of the areas of the park where Bigfoot might be. And so Yosemite's a big park, but really tourists only go to a pretty small part. So he's convinced that now that he works at the park, they don't want tourists in these certain areas. It's hard to get permits. It's hard to go back there unless it's certain times of the year. And that leads me into my second Bigfoot story from that trip. And this one comes secondhand from my mom. And so my mom said she had met up with a Bigfoot researcher in her area. She didn't really tell me his name. I didn't really ask too much, but she said she went out with him a couple times. She lives in Badger, which is way high in the Sierra Nevadas. It's by Sequoia National Park. If you're familiar with that, it's like outside Visalia quite a ways, about 45 minutes in the mountains past Visalia. And she said she met up with this Bigfoot researcher a couple times, an amateur researcher, and he's convinced that Bigfoot's in those areas all the time for seasonal food. And so I would suspect that you're not going to get permits to explore Yosemite where they think Bigfoot is or know Bigfoot is during the seasonal food that they go there. So during the berry times like in the summer, like right now it's probably peak berry time. So high in the mountains, the berries are really ripe. So it's probably pretty hard to get a permit to go high in the mountains right now. And then in the fall, a lot of those rivers have salmon runs. So they probably really limit the lowland hikes or the rivers that they know Sasquatch to be operating in. And my mom told me a story. That guy told her, he said that there has been a couple of people that kind of mysteriously died. She said one guy got lost in the snow. Him and his friend were hiking around Yosemite in the snow, and it was a blizzard situation. And him and his friend got separated. His friend made it to a hiking shelter, which, if you're familiar with that, it's like a little stoutly built log cabin in the area. And he thought his friend was behind him, but he wasn't. So he made it to the shelter, and there's a couple other people in there, and he said, "Hey, my friend was right behind me." And then they go to look for the friend, and the friend was not too far from the cabin. They found him in the blizzard, which is amazing. And she didn't know how long, but he was just badly killed. His neck was snapped and his limbs were snapped. And there was no apparent way he could have taken that damage. And when they did research, investigated that death, they said that an animal had killed him, but there was no apparent claw marks or bite marks. So she told that story. She also said the investigator told her that the local Native Americans, when they would go to these places where they knew Sasquatch was, they'd lay out a blanket with offerings for the Sasquatch, and the chief would go and sit with the Sasquatch and present these offerings before they would go and harvest the berries or the salmon or whatever. So they would, bring up a couple of the choice salmon, a couple baskets of berries, lay out a blanket in an area where they knew it was like almost like a prearranged meeting area where they knew Sasquatch would come. The chief would lay down the blanket, kind of sit there and meditate and hang out for a day or a couple hours until the Sasquatch came down. They would have some sort of form of communication, be it verbal or she said that guy said that they would use like sign language, and then the chief would present the offerings. If the Sasquatch liked them, then they were okay to go harvest those seasonal foods. If not, it was incredibly dangerous for the tribes to operate up there. And she also said that, and I've heard this before, that the Sasquatch liked tobacco, and they would smoke, the peace pipe. I don't know if it's actually tobacco or herbs or whatever it was, but they'd smoke the peace pipe, even give the Sasquatch some tobacco, which I don't know. I've never heard a Sasquatch smoke a tobacco pipe before, but maybe he does. So anyways, that is the two stories I got at my time in Yosemite. I hope you guys like this format. If you do, give it a like, give it a thumbs up, give me a subscribe. I got another video coming up next week from my trip, so look forward to that, and I'll see you guys next time.